they want you to play the grandma in it. And I was like, well, they'd already shot the pilot. I was actually on vacation down in the Caribbean, and they, streamed it to me. And I looked at it and it was like, yippee skippy, this is exactly what I want. And so it was like when I got to Toy Story, it was like, you bet I want to be part of this.
Well, hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here today. Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. My name is Jessica Radloff. I am the senior West Coast editor at Glamour, where I've had the privilege of getting to do a deep dive with the legendary Annie Potts, the iconic Annie Potts, about her career, and also the author of The Oral History of the Big Bang Theory. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the absolutely wonderful, fantastic Annie Potts.
Hi, thank you so much.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here with you today. You know, I just adore you, and there's so much to talk about. So
I'm so glad it's you.
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you. This kind of feels like this is your life, doesn't it? Like we're going to go down this whole memory lane. Are you ready for this?
I'm not sure if I go screaming from the room. It's like, I don't know.
Well, you know what I decided to do? Usually I save this for the end, but I thought, you know what? Let's do something a little different, and let's do some rapid fire questions with you in the beginning, kind of a warm up to warm up and play some fun, silly questions here. So the first thing I want to know is, what is the first thing you do when you get to your dressing room or you get to set in general? Is there something you have to have or get?
Well, I have a whole, thing that I do, but I do my own makeup. So I usually put my things down, get my little thermos of whatever, and start to work. And because I started in the theater, and of course everybody did their own makeup, I still like to do my own, because that's what brings me to the character, to just put her together. And it's a little meditation for me. So that's my process.
How long does it take you to get into character for Mima? How long do you spend on your makeup?
I can do it in 20 minutes. The wig takes 5. So I'm fast.
That is impressive, especially because Mima has existed in the 80s and 90s, where I feel like we wore more makeup. So I'm impressed. You're going to have to come over to my house and give me a tutorial.
I've pared it down over the years, but it's not hard to put the blue eyeshadow on and little lipstick and go.
I love it. Okay. Have you ever overslept for a call time?
Yes. Yes, I have.
What happened and what was it for?
I think that I was doing, one time it was just inadvertent. And, it's been a couple of times, actually. I was doing a pilot. I was doing the pilot for GCB down in Dallas, and I had an early call.
Okay.
I had a later call, and I just come in. I was jet lagged and confused and stuff, and I was sleeping with like the clock in my hand so that I could, check it to make sure that, the several alarms that I'd set would go off. And I hadn't been sleeping well, and I hadn't thought about this story in a while, so it's taken me a minute anyway, it turned out that I looked up the clock upside down. So I thought, oh my God, I've got to get some more sleep. So I thought I'll take a crumb of a sleeping pill so I can get a little rest. So I'm good. So I take the sleeping pill, And literally 10 minutes later, the alarm goes off because I'd been looking at the clock upside down. So I was like, oh my God. So, and I had a big scene that day. So I arrived, and it was a little bit like having the flu and having to work because I was just not quite awake. It was,
Right.
anyway, we had I told my story around, and so we had a lot of laughs, and that kind of kept me with it. But whoa, I hate to be late, and I don't ever like, it's one reason why I like to do my own makeup, because I'm a control freak, and I don't want, people are slow, and I'm watching the time, and I need to be, it's like, no, my motto is nobody waits for me.
Next question is, how did you celebrate your first Emmy nomination for Love and War?
You know, I don't remember celebrating it, but I have a funny story about it.
Tell me.
They were televised from a big theater in Pasadena at the time, and I got put in the very front row on the right, and I thought, well, maybe they put me up here because I might get it or something. I didn't know. You don't know about those things. Anyway, I thought, man, I have got the best seat. And then it started, and the cameras came down, and they were stationed in front of me and running around back and forth. And the area between the apron of the stage and me was so narrow that I literally spent the evening in my gown with my feet up like this to get them out of the way of the cameras running around. And it was the pathway for all the winners to come by. So I could later say that I had actually been stepped on by everyone in Hollywood. So that was that's my Emmy story. I did not win, but I was just glad to be in the mix.
Listen, it is an honor to be nominated, but I also feel like I'm on a quest for you to get that Emmy, because God knows you deserve it. And what you do on Young Sheldon is just, it's so wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, it's so fun to watch you. And I can't wait to get to that part of your career as we get more into this. But I'm also curious, is there a skill that you have outside of acting that people might be surprised to know? Something you consider yourself really good at?
What am I really good at? I'm very well. I have this theory about art and artists, and I think it's all the same thing. I think cutting hair, arranging flowers, organizing a monologue to be pulled through your body, and you present a completely whole different character. Organizing furniture in a room. I think all of that it's the same thing. And often people who are good at one thing are good at several others, I find. Don't you know that? And what am I good at? I do paint and draw, not much anymore, but I can do that, and I love it. I don't have time for it. I love gardening. And I'm a decorator too. I always do my own, and it's a wild house. People come in and go, holy smoke! It's like being inside your brain. It's like, yeah. Anyway. I like to do all those things, and I'm a little good at it.
I love that. So you're going to come over to my house next and teach me how to do my makeup faster, rearrange my furniture, and help me garden.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. And then finally, for these rapid fire questions, what is the role that most fans come up to you and want to talk about?
You know, it varies with the season. I would say that I get the most fan mail from all over the world for Ghostbusters still. That's
Janine?
Yes, and for the Toy Story voice. I don't but more and more, it's for Sheldon. Of course, the wig is such a fantastic disguise that I can slip through life pretty much unnoticed, unless, of course, I open my mouth, and then, But I'm surprised. I just got back. I was doing the next installment of the Ghostbusters, and we shot in England for several months, and Sheldon is very popular there. So every once in a while, people would go, "What? Why are you here?" But it just depends. With designing women, still, I have a lot of older women and some young women about your age who say, I used to watch that with my mother or my grandmother. A lot of gay men of a certain age who said, "Oh, changed my life. I got to sit with my mother and my grandmother and watch that, and I am who I am because of you four women." It's like, I love that. Yeah. But it's always a little different.
Yeah, I love that. Do you feel warmed up now? Was that a good first exercise?
Yeah, that was a good start.
I'm so glad. So tell our viewers first where you were born, where you grew up, and also where you did the most of your acting training.
Oh, well, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, because it was kind of the closest hospital to the little town that we lived in Kentucky. And I started out, there wasn't much to do there in the summer, so our parents sent us away to camp up in the mountains in North Carolina. And for the whole summer, like 2 months, we didn't, we stayed there. And there was they had a drama program there, and I started acting there. And the woman who ran that program pulled me aside and told me that I had done a play with her, and she said, I think you have a little light. And I was like, what? Nobody had ever told me that I was good at anything. Anyway, that was like that. Okay, that's it. That's what I'll do then. And that's what got me started. And then I went to school in Missouri, in Columbia, Missouri, at Stevens College, that then had and has continued to have the oldest master apprentice program in the country. And now it's actually a conservatory. They've moved up a little bit, but it was pretty much a conservatory when I was there. It was all very practical. I don't remember actually taking any classes but theater, which is all I wanted to do anyway. So that's where I started.
Was there anything that you did want to do before that person came up to you to say, "I see a light in you"?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had already started to do my little artwork at a very young age. Mostly I was like sitting in class, just drawing pictures in the margins of every book because I probably wasn't paying very much attention. I wasn't. I think I probably wasn't a very good student.
I don't know about that, but
well, I became a good student when I got to college. I did really well. surprising even myself. But it was because it was all things that I was interested in.
Yeah. Did you first move to New York or Los Angeles?
Well, I was on my way to gathering some funds to go to New York because that's all I ever wanted to do. And I was in a serious car accident then, and kind of put a hard stop on my career for some time because I broke both of my legs, and I had to have I was in. Oh, there's my dog now. Anyway,
It's another thing you're good at, by the way. You're a wonderful dog mama.
thank you. I was in the hospital for a long time, and I kind of had to learn to walk again, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to walk well enough so that I could actually have a career in the theater. And then I ended up coming out to Los Angeles, and I never wanted anything to do with Los Angeles. I didn't want to be in film or TV. I just wanted to be on stage. And but I'd been living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and CalArts came through auditioning for their graduate school, and I thought, well, maybe I should do that and see if I can get my sea legs back. And so I was accepted there into their master's program, and that's what brought me originally to Los Angeles. CalArts was very young at the time, and they really didn't have themselves together as a theater department yet. So I didn't stay. I didn't even stay the whole year because they really didn't have much to offer me at that time. And then I came down into the city and started doing little theater here. I mean, there's many 99-seat houses around, and I worked at them.
How did you get your first agent?
Well, I have to back it up just a little bit because I got a job with touring with Vincent Price and Roddy McDowell, and Vincent's very, very elegant, fabulous, and I do mean fabulous wife, Coral Brown, who was a famous actress from England. She'd been at the Old Vic for years, and she was spicy. And I loved her. Anyway, I fell in with this nice group of older actors who, and Roddy in particular, pulled me aside and he said, when we get back to LA, I'd like to introduce you to some people I want to help you. I think you're worthy of that. And I was like, oh, how lovely. And honestly, people offer those things and they don't always come through. But he did. And he introduced me to people, and literally the first casting agent, who was a good friend of his, who he called to please see me, hired me, and I was doing a pilot for NBC a week later. Like, it just, happened like that. But
Wow.
it was really because of Roddy.
My goodness. Do you remember what the pilot was called?
Yes, it was called Hollywood High. And I can't remember.
It doesn't get better than that. Oh my God.
It didn't go. It didn't go anywhere. Right. But there was an agent in the audience, and she came backstage after we shot it, and she said, "Who's your representative?" And I went, "Oh, I don't have one." Okay. She said, "Well, I would like to represent you." I said, "Great." Wow. So that was Nicole David, and she, totally jump-started my career. I was with her for 17, 18 years. 6 months later, I was starring in Corvette Summer, and I thought, I don't know why people say it's so hard. This seems to be like, I mean, of course, I was in the honeymoon phase here, and I was yet to experience the that thing that happens. But for the most part, I have been employed doing interesting work and happily engaged in my craft here.
Yeah, we should mention, by the way, Corvette Summer also starred Mark Hamill,
Yes.
and you were nominated for Golden Globe for that performance, weren't you?
Yes, I was, as most promising newcomer or something like that. And I didn't win that either.
I'm going to come over right after this and bring you an award. I'm going to bring you something, Annie.
No, I did. I've been nominated for different things, but the only thing I ever got nominated for that I won was I got Best Foreign Actress in Canada.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What was that for?
It was for a film called Heart Aches that I did with Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
A very sweet film.
That's amazing. I love that. That's really cool. When I was looking at your IMDb page, they list the 4 credits outside of Young Sheldon that you are most known for. So I figured let's go through those 4 credits you're most known for first, and then we'll fill in the blanks with other things. And of course, the first one is Ghostbusters, where you played Janine. Talk to me about how that role came about. And there's a great story you told me with your glasses that you wore.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people will be surprised to know.
I just went in cold on an audition and got the role. And then we were shooting it in New York, and I had just come from my wardrobe fitting and everything. And I went down to the set because they were shooting something out on the street in front of the firehouse. And anyway, I was just in my street clothes, and I went over to see Ivan Reitman. The director was in his chair, and he looked around and he went, "Oh, Annie, you're here." He went, "Great. Everybody's running out of the firehouse in this thing." He said, "Let me put you in the scene." And I was like, No, I'm not, I don't have my costume on or anything. It's not. He said, "It doesn't matter." I was like, "Yeah, it matters." So I was standing there with the costumer, and she had these big kind of Coke bottle glasses on. And I said, "Let me borrow your glasses." So that's how because it was established then, I had to stick with it. So that's.
But you couldn't slip out of them, right? They were prescription?
They were her prescription, and they were quite strong. So I was just cross-eyed. But I think we maybe eventually changed those. I don't know. I haven't watched that film in a while. I would have to look back, but that's how I remember it.
Well, it was 1984 when it came out. What sticks in your mind when you think back to that time when you were working with those guys and being part of this film that has truly, lasted forever and been so iconic and launched other franchises and, sequels and movies after that? What's your greatest memory from that movie?
Well, I didn't come from the world of sketch comedy or improvisation, but the script was great. They wrote a great script, and but the guys were making stuff up. And I was so frustrated by it. I was like, "Did you even read the scene? It was good. You're just making stuff up." So that was new for me, and there was a learning curve to that. Because you really have to be on your toes when people are, it's like, okay, I could use one line from that scene and where shall I put it in? Because it was a bit of a free for all. And, I just finished shooting another one and it hadn't changed much.
I love that. It's a great experience, I think, as an actor, probably because so much of acting is just flying by the seat of your pants half the time.
Yes, I am always keen on working with the scene and memorizing the lines. But what the boys do has been very successful.
Yeah.
And they were just in the first throes of having, the fame that SNL brought them all, and being, famous for that kind of comedy, and it was new for me.
Yeah. Did it really change your life when it came out? I mean, obviously we didn't have social media then, but what was it like for you when that movie finally hit theaters? Could you walk around the streets anymore without, just minding your own business, or were fans coming up to you all the time? How did it change things for you?
I don't remember that it did so much, but I could have been just oblivious. Again, it was another character that was not wildly like me.
Right.
So it was different.
Yeah. You mentioned memorizing your lines and always liking to be prepared. Do you have a trick for memorizing lines? How do you do it when you get a script?
Well, I become completely OCD and have a whole filing system where I mark everything so that I can quick reference what I'm doing when I get there, and then I have a way that I underline things. There's something about in the process of when I underline it that it's like laying down the first line of memorization, and then I have to go back, and then I do my notations and marking it up, and that helps further. And then sometimes after that, then I write in longhand all the lines. Something about that process too, of actually writing the words down. But it's tedious, but it's the fastest way I've found.
Wow. And you still do that now, even on Young Sheldon?
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. Do you memorize everybody else's lines that you're in a scene with? Do you know theirs too, or just yours?
It just depends. It just depends on, I certainly know my cue, and I'm familiar with what they're saying to me so that I can know how to say that. But it works for me. I've developed that over the years.
Yeah. The next credit that IMDb lists as one of your most well-known, of course, is Toy Story as Bo Peep. So how did that role come about, and what did that teach you about voice acting?
Well, I had done a little thing for Brad Bird before, something that he was doing with Tim Burton called Amazing Stories, or was it part of that? I can't remember. Anyway, it was some very clever stuff. Tim Burton was drawing it. They did something called Family Dog. And I went in and did that. And maybe that's how my voice became known to them. But I was in the middle of doing Designing Women and I was super busy. I had a couple of kids. One was just a toddler, and one who was a teenager, and I had my hands full. And my manager called and said, "Hey, listen, there's these people who are doing the first completely computer animated feature film, and they'd like you to be a voice." And I went, "I don't even know what you just told me. What?" And he said, "Well, it's a totally computer animated film." It didn't sound like anything I'd be interested in. And he said, "But they've done some interesting little shorts. They want to send some shorts over and have you look at them." And I was like, "Okay, sure, send them over." So they sent them over, and I chucked them in a pile, didn't look. 2 or 3 weeks later, my manager called and said, "Hey, listen, did you have a moment to look at that?" "No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm going to do it." Another week passed, and I came home from work, and my little boy, who was about 3 then, grabbed my hand and pulled me into the TV room and said, "Mommy, watch." And he knew how to put it was a big deck thing. He had opened the package himself and been watching these all day. And I watched, I think, Red's Dream, which is a famous one. There was like 6 or 7 in there, one more fantastically beautiful and more clever than the last. And I went, "Mommy has to make a phone call." Anyway, I called my manager up and I said, "Yeah, hook me up with these people. I definitely want to work for them." And that's how I got associated with them.
Wow. How much did you love being in a booth and working this way? Or was it a challenge? Was it a learning curve? Because it is a whole other skill set.
It's a whole other skill set. It's so exhausting because you don't have anything but your voice. That's it. And it takes so much energy when it's the sole way that you're expressing yourself. You don't, and in that case with them, they film the actors, so they kind of get what kind of gestures you make and things, because I mean, certainly in the case of Tom Hanks' character, Woody, it really does kind of look like him, you know. I never, because Bo Peep is so blonde, I never thought that I looked like her, but my voice certainly does animate her. So there is some synergy there. But it is completely different. And I was surprised how exhausting it was. And I mean, 5 hours in that room with the things on doing it. They're like, "Okay, do it again, but go up at the end, do it again." And it's, I mean, and of course they're so talented. I just was like, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just tell me how you want it, and I will try to deliver that." But I love doing them. I just love it. And, you know, to have that relationship to young children. The stories are so positive, you know, and so helpful to them. I used to go read at my children's school, and most of the children had seen those. And so when I read them other books like Harry Potter and stuff, my voice had meaning to them because they'd been hearing me since they were little, you know. And I've always thought that was a great privilege.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a special story. Good for your son. I hope he got a finder's fee for finally getting that DVD so that you could watch it.
Well, it definitely put him through college.
That's fantastic. I love it. The other film that IMDb lists, of course, is Pretty in Pink in 1986.
Mhm.
Molly Ringwald. I mean, what do you remember from that? And what was that audition like?
I don't remember the audition.
Okay.
I kind of remember what I wore, but I don't really remember it. But it was a lovely group to be with. Molly was so sweet and so talented at all of 18. Uh, and I just loved her. And we had a wonderful director. Howie Deutsch directed that, and he was delightful. And you know, I love that movie. I have to. I watched it not too long ago, and it so holds up. I think, and I feel bad that kids don't have a John Hughes person who's writing to them to say, "I know how you feel. This is the way it is. This is what it's like." Um, yeah,
Yeah.
he was wonderful at. He totally understood what made kids tick, and it was great.
Yeah, it's the same kind of with Judy Blume. It just feels like, these movies were such a part of people's adolescence, and there's so much meaning in there, and it feels like it's harder to find these days. So
Yeah, I mean, there's so much content on television now. I mean, that they even call it content as if it was just like stuff that got thrown into a traveling bag. It's just, well, look in there, it's a bunch of stuff. But so much of it is really, really good. I'm just, I really think it is the platinum age for TV. I mean, of course, we're in the middle of a big strike and struggle right now to figure out how to fairly carve up the pie for these new things that we hardly understand. But boy, there is a lot of great work going on.
there really is, but what's hard too is that you take a streaming service like Hulu, which I believe is where Designing Women lives. There is so much new stuff, but then it's also so wonderful to go back to the older stuff, like a Designing Women, to see shows like that, because that was the fourth show on IMDb's list of what you're known for. And to me, it is just your most iconic role. You did, I think, 166 episodes as Mary Jo Shively. Such an amazing, amazing character. I will never forget the hair, because I wanted that hair when I was growing up.
You have that hair, Jessica.
You're so sweet. Didn't back then. Did not back then. But talk to me about how that role came about, because it was more about wanting to be at home, right? You were a mom.
Yes.
And what was the script when you first read it?
Well, we didn't see the script.
You didn't. How come?
No, because here's the thing. Linda Bloodworth, who created that show, had worked with Dixie and Delta on another show, which was so fabulous, called Filthy Rich. Right. Somewhere in the land of TV, it exists. Find it, because it is so dark and fabulously funny. Oh my God. And then she was writing another show called Lime Street that starred Robert Wagner, that was all shot in Europe. And she had heard about me and heard about Jean Smart, and she cast Jean and I as these two wacky con artist sisters, robbing people and stirring up other kinds of mischief all over the world. And so Jean and I flew over and did those roles. And based on that, Linda went to CBS apparently and said, I have Dixie and Delta and Annie and Jean. Because she said, listen, if I wrote something for you, would you do it? It's like, sure. So I don't think we saw the script until we sat down to read it after it had sold. I know it's very unusual, but she's very unusual, and she's a pretty darn good writer, and so we all signed up.
Oh my goodness. How much input did you have into the character of Mary Jo?
It was all there. It was all there, and she had based the characters on what she knew of us, or her interpretation of us. Of course, Dixie wasn't. Dixie was a very conservative Republican, and she had to do a lot of, liberal speeches that really made her cringe, I think. But but she did them. Boy, did she do them. So it was. She wrote very well for us, Linda.
You were all so different. I mean, 4 different personalities. What was it? What did you learn, first of all, about working with other actors who are so different? And then you're also all shot out of a cannon because the show, it took some time to find its audience, but it really did become such this massive fan favorite hit. So what did you learn from that experience and working with your fellow actors?
Well, when you get into those things, you kind of are working in a bubble, it's intense work. And it was different back then. We didn't Zoom anything. You had to show up. If it was like they wanted you on a junket, it was like, oh, you're going to go to Boston and New York and Chicago and Detroit and San Francisco. You appeared, you didn't appear in a box like this. So there was always a lot of that kind of work. But we were a huge hit, and that was fun. But we were such in the bubble. We often, you come out of the bubble and people go, "Oh my God, I know you." And it's like, you do? Why? How is that? But I loved it. I wouldn't give anything for those years.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, you have so many people that come up to you and want to talk about that show and how they still do watch it and what it meant to them. Was there a storyline or a scene in particular that you remember really resonating with you at the time?
I think what reverberated with people who were watching, and there hadn't been much of this on TV, was that I was a single mother. And when people come up to me and want to talk about that, it's often because of that. She was like, my mom was divorced and she was embarrassed about it and didn't know how to conduct her life. And we would sit down together, and your being in that character would help her know how to be. And, we sometimes watch things so that we don't feel like we're alone in life to do that. So I was very happy to represent for single mothers.
By the way, on a side note, I think as a tie-in also, you might appreciate this, that the night that I turned in the final copy of the Big Bang Theory book to my publisher, I'll never forget, I was home in St. Louis with my parents, and it was the first night I didn't have to work because I'd been pulling double duty for nearly 2 years with Glamour and the book. And I remember my parents said, "You got a night free," until what I thought was the edits coming back the next day. And my mom and dad were like, "What do you want to watch on TV with us?" And I said, "Let's watch Designing Women. Let's start it from the beginning." And I kid you not, because there was a comfort to it. I love, from the house to these characters. That is the show that I wanted to watch after I had my first free night in 2 years. And I said, let's sit down and watch Designing Women from the beginning. And that's what we did. And it was so calming. So I get it. I really, and I don't know why exactly I pulled that show out of all the others, but but it sticks with you. It was clearly something that I had been thinking.
Well, it was very unusual for women, for working women. I mean, after all, this was 1986.
Yes.
And I mean, mouthy, divorced, single women working in the workplace with a Black man. It was a lot shocking,
Yeah.
and controversial at the time. And I can see how on that evening for you that might have been a real palate cleanser.
I totally get that. So let's talk about Love and War then, with Jay Thomas and that show, which did garner your first Emmy nomination.
My only.
Well, there better be another. That's all I'm going to say. So
It's
what
on
was
the bucket list.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll tell you this. I'm glad that you say that, because the Emmy, it's certainly, I know you don't do this for the awards, but it honors the best in TV, and you are the best at what you do. And I appreciate that. So I'm glad you say it. I'm glad you know.
Oh yeah, I own that. Listen, I've had a great career. I got I got no complaints. You know what I mean? I am rewarded by my work.
Yeah.
I don't have to be awarded. I love the people I work with. I have wonderful scripts to do, and to be working in this business at 70.
Yeah.
There are not too many of us who are still standing, although there are a lot of women who have certainly made the case for older women opening box office, and there have been treasures inside of that. So, things are changing, but I still feel really fortunate. I mean, still, it's like, well, Harrison Ford can be with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's 40 years plus younger than him, and people go, ooh, sexy, fabulous. And he is sexy and fabulous. But when the reverse is true, it's like, ew.
Yeah.
And
I don't playing his love interest, but still, it's the fact that they're on screen together.
Yep. People are waiting for sparks. They got to be waiting for sparks. I haven't seen the movie, but she is gorgeous and funny and beautiful. And so why wouldn't there be sparks?
Are you saying you want to take over the Indiana Jones movie franchise? Is that on the bucket list too? Since Harrison Ford is stepping down?
I don't know. I'd have to have somebody to do my stunts for me.
Listen, hey, Missy, you did on Broadway Pippin, right?
Yes. Yes, I did. I did a trapeze act.
Yes. And then you went in for surgery the next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you need a stunt double. You're pretty good at your own stuff, I think.
Yeah. Well, I have done some crazy stuff, but sure was fun. I have to say, in the next Ghostbusters, it's a big action movie, ghosts and stuff. So fun was had.
I love it. Is that how you described the movie back when it came out in 84? It's about ghosts and stuff.
Well, it was and is so unique because the blend of what Ghostbusters did in terms of making you scream with fright and then wet your pants laughing. It was, there are very few films ever that have made us do that. And that, it's an hour and a half of that.
Yeah, so true. Was there anything else you wanted to say about Love and War and working with Jay Thomas on that show?
Oh, that was so much fun. I just loved Jay. The cast of the show was just fantastic. Joel Murray, Bill's brother, who is so talented and so kind and sweet and funny. And Susie Plaxon, who hasn't worked much, I think, who was so gifted, like Eve Arden, just really talented. And of course, the divinely talented Joanna Gleason, who after that just went back to New York and did a whole lot of Sondheim on Broadway. And Jay was so much fun. And of course, Diane English also was just a sensational writer. I've always had the gift of having wonderful writers writing for me. And Diane was another one, and I loved doing that show. And it was a real surprise that it had been on a year, and I replaced whoever it was who was doing the female lead in it. And we did 2 years after I came in. And I just don't, back then it was just the three networks plus Fox. And so, and we were like a top 20 show when they canceled us. I was like, what? Anyway, that happens. But then I got to go and do, I have to say, my favorite piece that I've ever done on TV, which was Any Day Now, about the friendship between two women in the South, one black, one white, who had grown up in Jim Crow South. And we had two younger versions of ourselves who played, the little girls back in the 60s in Birmingham, Alabama. And then we played the grown-ups, of course, Lorraine Toussaint and Di. And we had the great Nancy Miller, who wrote that show with a gifted staff of writers. And we talked about things that are still hot buttons, and we did it with rigorous honesty and shocking. It was just, it's a beautiful show. And it's still somewhere out there in the TV universe, maybe Hulu too. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a beautiful show.
Yeah, it aired on Lifetime. You played Mary Elizabeth Emmy Sims opposite Lorraine Toussaint. And when I remember when I asked you for your Glamour feature, what is the role that you feel is most like you? You said Mary Elizabeth. That was the one.
Yeah, definitely. It was nice. Well, I'd been doing comedy for a while, and it was nice for me to swing back into not doing that and doing an hour drama. I loved it.
And I believe you were nominated for a SAG award for that, right?
I think maybe a couple. Not sure.
Yeah, I think so too, which is such a great honor as well.
But we were one of the first dramas on cable, that got any attention. But still, people were like, "Oh, it's cable. What value does that have?" I was like, right. When streaming happened, it's just some kind of thing that's, I don't know. They call it, what is it? Streaming? What is it? Cable? Anyway, so, but it was just real good.
Yeah, it definitely was. I want to go back for a second to Love and War, and you said, how heartbreaking it was when that was canceled after season 3. So much of this business as actors is not working, and it's dealing with disappointment and staying in the game when sometimes you feel like you just want to get out. It's very hard to keep your spirits up. So when you dealt with disappointment from a show like Love and War being canceled, or anything else, if there was a role that you wanted and it didn't pan out, how do you cope with that disappointment, especially when it's really hard to see through the clouds?
Well, it's been different every time I went through what I would call a lull. Because I was at different ages and stages in my life. And there were, I mean, um, after Any Day Now, I think that I had done 17 straight seasons from going from one show to the other. And I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was ready to rest just a little bit to go on. So that was different in that I just really needed to stop for a minute. But there were then after that, after I got rested, it was like, okay, I'm ready to work again now. And it was like, whoops, well, there's nothing for you and you're 50. So that was a little trickier. And I had a few years in there that I thought, wow, I've hit the wall now. And so I went back to theater, my first love, and developed a play with some friends of mine. I really enjoyed that. And then I got God of Carnage on Broadway. And if anybody had told me when I started out in this business that I would be 56 or 7 when I made it to Broadway, I may have tossed in the towel. But that's what it took. And I was really thrilled to get there. I had a wonderful time.
What did that experience teach you about life in general?
Oh, it's like patience, grasshopper. See, you got there, didn't you? It taught me a lot, actually. And it gave me a lot of gratitude, that I held out that long and held up that long, and that all the things that seemed like obstacles were actually not obstacles at all, but things that helped carry me to the next thing. All of a sudden after a while, patterns start to develop and you go, oh, well, I see. That was just right. It wasn't comfortable for me, but that was just right. I learned things. I grew. All of it is, fodder for an actor's emotional canon. And
right.
So I try to take it in stride. But before Sheldon came, I had I had been doing Pippin in New York, and then I came back out to LA, and it was like, there's nothing. My husband was running a show in New Orleans, so we just left LA, and I went there, and I was really, really sad to leave LA, and I thought, well, that's it. Just take it in stride. You've had a good one. Go back to the South and do something new. And I got there and I still really missed it. And I was feeling sad. And we bought a house. I decorated the house. That kept me off the street for a minute. And then I thought, what am I going to do? And just about that time, they called and said, Chuck Lorre's written this show, and they want you to play the grandma in it. And I was like, well, they'd already shot the pilot. I was actually on vacation down in the Caribbean, and they, streamed it to me. And I looked at it and it was like, yippee skippy, this is exactly what I want. And so it was like when I got to Toy Story, it was like, you bet I want to be part of this. Mm-hmm. And so now we're going into our 7th season there, and I just love it.
This show, the writing is so sharp. It is so smart. The chemistry between you and the rest of the cast is extraordinary. You get to work with some amazing actors of all ages on this show. What's been the biggest surprise about the whole experience now as you are about to go into season 7 that you might not have guessed when you were starting out in episode 2 of season 1?
Well, I'm always astonished by the writers who before they started Sheldon, they'd been writing on The Big Bang since the beginning of that. So basically, they've been writing these characters for 20 years. And they, no matter how many episodes they've done, they always find a fresh thing to do. I don't know how they're not out of ideas, except that, of course, people grow and change, and there's always things to write about people's change and growth. But they're really quite extraordinary. Steve Milaro and Steve Holland, and, Chuck is, of course, always in on that too. And we have an amazing staff. The easiest thing is it requires almost no effort on my part. Always when I was doing series before, it would be like I would be very involved as much as anyone would let me or invite me to be in on, ideas and things. And that took, more energy. And I don't have to think about anything. They are just told they don't need my help on any of that. So that's kind of great. It's like you just waiting for somebody to bring you the next present, So I love doing it, and it's been wonderful to watch the kids grow in their craft and grow up, literally. I mean, they were little tiny things when we began. Yes. And who has grown and changed more than Montana Jordan?
Well, I was going to say, I'm so glad you brought him up, because and this is also the power of what Steve Milaro and Steve Holland do, which is write such characters with such heart. And one of my favorite storylines the last 2 years have been the scenes with Montana Jordan and you. And Montana plays your grandson, Georgie, and he is having a child out of wedlock with a girl much older than he is. And Mima is really the person that she's still wild and doing her own thing, but she also helps ground his relationship and him becoming a father. What's been the best part about working with him and also Emily Osment and doing this storyline? Because Mima has such vibrancy as part of this storyline. So what have you enjoyed most about working with them?
Oh, well, I love them both. They're both, totally different. I mean, Emily's been working since she was a kid. It's like, oh, wait, Montana's been working since he was a kid too. But I think Montana's sort of the accidental celebrity. I think that when we finish our year, he just goes home to Texas, and he has a ranch, and he's been buying some real estate, and he just does that. He has his own clothing line now. He doesn't seem to need to do any other work. He's not driven to do that. But boy, does he show up for this. And who could be sweeter when he talks to the baby or tells Emily Osment that he's in love with her? It's like, wow, that's real. That's true. I mean, he's just got a totally open heart. He's spectacular.
Yeah. I really do want a Meemaw spinoff. If Young Sheldon ends after season 7, I would like a Meemaw spinoff where Georgie and Mandy move in with Meemaw and they all live together, because we saw what happened at the end of season 6 with the tornado, which was devastating. I would like to see them all live together, and it can be like a new updated Designing Women.
Okay, from your lips to God's ears, Jessica. I don't know what is going to happen, but we're a top 5 show, so I don't think we'll be going anywhere unless, of course, the children decide that they want another kind of life, because it's an odd way to grow up for kids.
Yeah. What have you taken away from playing Meemaw?
Well, she's pretty much like my own mother.
Really?
Yeah. She's a little more liberal. She's a little less prudish, and than my mother, but it's pretty much her. So it's very, I'm so sorry she's not around anymore, because I think she would get such a kick out of it. But it's, now I'm just playing my mother. But with a touch of Dixie Carter thrown in there every once in a while.
I love that. I was going to say that one of the things that makes a character like Meemaw / Connie so great is that here's a woman. How old is she supposed to be now, would you say?
I have no idea.
Well, let's say she's in her late 60s or 70s. I don't know. She's still having sex. She's enjoying her male companions. She's enjoying working. She's enjoying life, but she's in it. And that is what is so wonderful to see. She is not just sitting around baking, which could have been back in Texas in the 80s and 90s. That, you never know. And that's okay too. But it's great to see a woman who is as vibrant and feisty and spicy as she is.
Yeah, it's a very positive old woman that I'm representing. And I'm happy to see that represented, because we get marginalized a lot. It's like, no, it's still happening. I mean, look at Jane Fonda. I mean, she's unstoppable. Diane Keaton, all the girls. It's kind of great, and there's new stuff. Nobody's just
right,
waiting in the lobby of the old folks' home here. Like,
Annie, one of the things that I love most about you is how charitable you are, and you give back. And that's something that's so important to you. We were talking about it last year for your Glamour feature when the war in Ukraine started, and how you wanted to give back and help those refugees. So talk to me a little bit about why that is such an important cause for you and what it brings you to do that on a daily basis.
I'm amazed, especially since, at the very start of my career, I was, I had to overcome having every bone in my body broken and trying to, pull myself together and go on. Thank God I was young, because, that's what you do when you're young. It's like, no, I'm just going to pick myself up. But there were there were times because of my injuries that I thought that I might not be able to go on. And luckily, I've just been able to patch my bones back together again, time and again, so that I could do my work. And so I never lose sight of that, and never lose sight of the time. 50 years. 50 years.
Yeah.
I can't even believe I'm that old.
You're not old, first of all. 70, I think 70 is very young.
Hey, it's looking younger and younger to me. But no, I live in absolute gratitude and amazement, really, to still be out there kicking.
You're doing more than that. And I also want to tell those that are watching as well how charitable you are. You have one of the biggest hearts ever. And I'll never forget last year, even when the war in Ukraine was starting, and you said, you wanted to kind of create this movement where, we could get together and help out those that are in need. And if even 5 people at one time during the day came together to pray for others or think about others, like, those are the things that make the difference, in addition to actually doing the work and helping, whether it's, accumulating clothes for people that need it or whatever it is. And I think that's also something that contributes to your youthfulness, is how you look at others and wanting to help them.
Thank you. Yes, it means because I've been so honored by having this long career. It's of course everything to be informed by that the only answer to all of that is to try and give back in every direction you can. And so I have a foundation called the Heart Channels, and we are helping young people who need help getting through college, and single mothers, and we support an Afghan family who had, Anyway, I have a website. You can look at theheartchannels.org and see what we're doing, and we welcome donations, as there's so many people in need, more and more, always more, and it's nice to be able to direct some of my. There's a rattle over there. My dog. I thought we were having an earthquake. The whole table is shaking. It's okay. Anyway. Anyway, that is my great joy in life, to be able to do that. And the real reason I imagine that I've ever had success, that I would realize that in having that great success, I would pass it on.
I love that. Is there a motto, by the way, that you kind of always think about or always sticks with you? Or if you could get a tattoo of anything, what would it say?
Oh, gosh. What would it say?
Yeah.
Oh,
Bumper sticker.
I'm not really one for tattoos.
Me neither.
But I did see this girl in New York. I'd stopped at the street corner, and she had this massive thing. At first, I just glanced at it and I thought, ugh, people got to stop it with these tattoos. And then I looked back and I saw that it was a beautiful ship, and on a crest of waves, and it had this beautiful, like, ribbony thing, with a motto on it, and the ribbon said, and she adjusted her sail. And I thought, man, that is what it's all about. Just adjust your sail. If the wind's not coming from this way, pivot and catch the breeze from the other direction. And so I don't know if I was going to get one. I might just get those words. And she adjusted her sail.
I love that. We'll have to get you a sweatshirt and just embroider it on there at least.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, you are such an absolute joy. I like I said, you have the biggest heart, but your talent knows no bounds. And I want to get that Emmy for you eventually one day, because you truly do. As those that watch Young Sheldon know and have seen your career, you bring such gravitas and emotion and feeling to everything that you do. And we're the lucky recipients of it. So thank you.
Oh, I'm the lucky girl.